NTWADUMELA is back from his patrol, always ready to confront hyenas. He catches the matriarch.
The smell of blood still hangs in the air as the shadows begin to move. Bright eyes peer from the darkness. They don't back down, they don't feel fear. The lion's roar echoes, but the hyenas advance, patient, relentless, waiting for the right moment to strike the final blow. For a lion, this could mean the end, but for NTWADUMELA, it was just another day of survival. In Savute, he became one of the most dominant predators, facing ambushes and wars against a threat few dared to challenge, the hyenas. For years this conflict changed the dynamics of the region, testing the limits of strength and strategy in the wild. But not even the mightiest lion can escape the inevitable. What really happened in NTWADUMELA's final moments, and could his greatest enemy have been the hyenas, or something even worse? NTWADUMELA was one of the most remarkable lions ever recorded in the African savanna, mainly because of his aggression towards hyenas. This behavior, unusual among males of his species, made him a unique figure in the dynamic between predators. During his life, it is estimated that he killed about 40 hyenas, an impressive number within the constant animal conflict over control of resources. His presence in the Savute region significantly altered the relationship between these species, making their encounters increasingly violent. Lions and hyenas share the same habitat, and often fight over carcasses and territories. Although lions generally have the advantage due to their size and strength, hyenas compensate for this disadvantage with numbers and collective hunting strategies. However, NTWADUMELA not only defended his prey, but also actively hunted hyenas, a rare stance among males. This behavior meant that the clans in the region, which could reach 35 individuals, needed to reorganize to face the threat he posed. The aggression against the hyenas did not arise by chance. NTWADUMELA often observed these animals prowling his area, trying to steal killed prey. Unlike other lions who avoid unnecessary confrontations, he chose to respond immediately and lethally. His strategy was to attack before the group of hyenas had time to organize. This reduced their numerical advantage and reinforced his position as the dominant predator in the territory. The impact of his actions was recorded in documentaries about African wildlife, where his aggressive stance and his clashes with large groups of hyenas drew attention. This type of rivalry between species is common, but rarely reaches such an extreme level. NTWADUMELA's ability to face multiple opponents and survive reinforced his reputation among the researchers who studied his journey. His behavior challenged the usual pattern of male lions, who tend to leave this type of clash to the lionesses. Despite his strength, the pressure from the hyenas never ceased. Ambushes became frequent, and his adversaries began to attack in a more coordinated manner. Even with all his victories, the natural balance of the savanna did not allow absolute dominance. The cycle of survival demanded that he be constantly alert to new challenges, which reinforced the complexity of the interspecies war in the region. But NTWADUMELA was not alone. He formed an alliance with another male as strong as himself, further increasing his influence in the territory. This partnership would change the local dynamic, affecting not only the hyenas, but also other lions competing for the Savute region. The Savute region of Botswana is known for its territorial instability among large predators. NTWADUMELA and his brother emerged in this competitive environment where survival depended on strength, strategy, and alliances. To establish dominance, they needed to face older, more experienced lions who already controlled the area. Territorial disputes between males are a common event in the savanna, and this confrontation would define the future of the newcomers. The result would leave no doubt about the new leadership. Male lions challenge established coalitions in search of access to territory, prey, and females. When NTWADUMELA and his brother began their attack, it wasn't enough just to show aggression. It was necessary to prove that they had the ability to take over as leaders. Fights between adult lions are violent and can lead to the death or expulsion of the losers. This animal conflict determines which genes will be passed on, directly influencing the social structure of the lion population in the region. The confrontation against the veteran lions was intense. NTWADUMELA and his brother faced opponents who knew the territory and had combat experience. However, the alliance between the two newcomers proved superior. Using strength and cooperation, they managed to defeat the former leaders and took control of the area. This victory represented more than just possession of a territory. It guaranteed access to essential resources, such as abundant prey and strategic spots for rest and reproduction. After the victory, the new coalition established its dominance over Savut. NTWADUMELA and his brother regularly patrolled the region, marking territory with urine and roars, an essential behavior to ward off other males. In addition to the dispute against rival lions, there was the constant challenge posed by the hyenas, who took advantage of any sign of weakness to claim parts of the territory. With the new leaders in charge, the pressure on the hyenas increased significantly. NTWADUMELA's arrival marked the beginning of a new era in the savannah. He brought with him an unstoppable force and a determination that would change the course of lion history in the region. The takeover of the territory impacted the entire dynamic of the region. The lionesses, who previously belonged to the defeated coalition, began to follow the new leaders, ensuring the group's survival. This cycle of replacement is common among lions, but each transition brings changes that affect the balance of the savannah. NTWADUMELA and his brother now needed to solidify their position, face new challenges, and deal with the threats that still lingered in the conquered territory. But securing control of the area required more than strength. It was necessary to protect the members of the group, defend the cubs, and ensure a supply of food. NTWADUMELA not only took command of the coalition, but also stood out for unusual behavior among males, active participation in hunting large prey. In most lion groups, males play a central role in defending the territory, but rarely participate actively in hunting. However, NTWADUMELA deviated from this pattern. In addition to patrolling the area and driving away invaders, he also contributed to obtaining food, hunting large prey. This behavior was uncommon among dominant males, who usually leave this task to the lionesses. His posture reinforced control over the pride and the availability of resources. The savannah offers constant challenges, and the group's safety depends on the strength and vigilance of the males. NTWADUMELA and his brother ensured the stability of the coalition, facing threats from both other lions and hyenas, which were always looking for opportunities to get closer. NTWADUMELA's aggressive behavior towards these animals wasn't limited to defense. He eliminated any threat that endangered the cubs or possession of a carcass. This considerably reduced losses to rivals and increased the group's efficiency. His attacks against hyenas didn't only occur when they tried to steal prey. He actively hunted them, pursuing individuals that ventured near the pride's territory. This type of behavior was rare among lions and helped solidify his reputation as a relentless predator. The impact of his actions was noticeable in the dynamics of the region, making the group more dominant over carcasses and hindering the hyenas' actions. Besides hunting, NTWADUMELA also stood out for the way he handled internal challenges. Dominant males need to maintain their position within the pride, warding off contenders trying to usurp power. He demonstrated strength by preventing other lions from approaching the females and cubs. His dominance was crucial for the coalition's stability and ensured that his genes were passed on to the next generation. This level of protection was essential for the cubs' growth. On many occasions, groups of hyenas tried to attack the younger ones, who were still vulnerable. NTWADUMELA and his brother responded to these attacks with extreme aggression, warding off any threat before it became a bigger problem. This behavior increased the cubs' survival rate, ensuring the continuity of the group in the Savut savannah. But the relationship between NTWADUMELA and the hyenas was far from being just a territorial dispute. The conflict intensified when he witnessed a direct attack on his prey. This moment would mark the beginning of a war between species, where his response would forever alter the balance of the region. The conflict between lions and hyenas is a constant element in the African savanna since both species share the same territory and compete for the same resources. Although lions generally ignore hyenas when they are outnumbered, NTWADUMELA demonstrated different behavior. His aggressive stance became evident the moment he witnessed a group of hyenas trying to steal one of his kills. Instead of driving them away with threats, as most lions do, he attacked directly, eliminating 6 individuals in a single confrontation. This event marked the beginning of a prolonged struggle. The hyena groups, made up of as many as 35 members, began to avoid direct confrontations with NTWADUMELA, but that didn't mean they would give up competing for territory. Over time, his presence began to impact the dynamics of the region, and the hyenas needed to adopt new strategies to deal with the predator. This type of adaptation is common in wild environments where survival depends on the ability to respond to changes in the balance of power. The rivalry between lions and hyenas isn't just based on competition for food. Both species have complex social structures and depend on cooperation among group members to survive. While lions use their strength and size to dominate territories, hyenas rely on numbers and organization to compensate for their physical disadvantage. NTWADUMELA's presence made this balance even more fragile, forcing the hyenas to reconsider their approach in competing for prey and safe areas. After the first confrontation, NTWADUMELA's attacks on hyenas became increasingly frequent. He started chasing them even when they weren't directly competing for food. This type of behavior indicated a pattern that went beyond simply defending territory. He sought to eliminate competitors before they became a threat. With each clash, the number of hyenas killed increased, creating a hostile environment for these animals within the Savut region. NTWADUMELA's aggression started to provoke reactions. The hyenas, led by a dominant female, needed to find ways to minimize their losses and regain their balance. So, they started to act more carefully, watching his movements and identifying moments of vulnerability. The hyena's hunting strategy began to adapt to the new situation, and ambushes became a real possibility. The conflict was no longer limited to occasional encounters. It had transformed into a territorial war, where each species sought to ensure its survival. Faced with the constant threat, the hyena leader needed to develop an effective response to contain the lion's offensive. A plan was being hatched, and NTWADUMELA's cubs could be the target of this new strategy. The social organization of hyenas allows these animals to adapt quickly to new threats. After suffering significant losses in confrontations against NTWADUMELA, the group led by a dominant female began to act more strategically. Instead of direct confrontations, the hyenas began to observe the lion's movement patterns and look for gaps in his defense. In competitive ecosystems like the Savut savanna, survival depends on the ability to adjust to stronger predators. NTWADUMELA had caused a significant impact on the hyena population in the region. The reduction in the number of individuals weakened the clan's social structure, compromising their efficiency in hunting and stealing prey. Faced with this, the group's leader realized that attacking the lion directly would not be the best strategy. Instead, she started to target the coalition's most vulnerable point, the cubs. The goal was to reduce the next generation of lions and over time weaken the species' presence in the area. The hyenas began to carry out more coordinated attacks, taking advantage of moments when NTWADUMELA and his brother were distant or distracted. On some occasions, groups of hyenas were seen following lionesses with cubs, waiting for the right moment to attack. This strategy was risky, as a lioness protecting her cubs can be extremely aggressive. However, the number of hyenas involved in these attacks gave them an advantage in some situations. Although males generally do not participate directly in raising the cubs, NTWADUMELA responded actively to the threats. Whenever he noticed the hyenas moving near the pride's resting places, he acted quickly to scatter them. This behavior demonstrated how much the conflict between the species had escalated. It was no longer just about fighting over food. It was a territorial war where each side was trying to ensure the continuation of its lineage. The pressure from the hyenas forced NTWADUMELA to redouble his vigilance, but he couldn't be everywhere at once. Some cubs were lost in ambushes, which only further increased his aggression against his rivals. Whenever he encountered a group of hyenas, he attacked violently, reinforcing his dominance over the region. This cycle of retaliation further intensified the dispute, making coexistence between the species increasingly difficult. Despite the losses, NTWADUMELA continued to maintain control over his territory. However, the conflict with the hyenas was far from resolved. The rivalry would reach its peak in a decisive confrontation, where the fight between the predators would determine who would dominate the savanna. The increased tension between NTWADUMELA and the hyenas led to an inevitable confrontation. After months of attacks and retaliations, the hyena clan, led by its dominant female, decided to act more aggressively. Taking advantage of a moment when the lion was alone, a large group surrounded NTWADUMELA, seeking to finally eliminate him. This type of strategy, where a large number of hyenas attack an isolated lion, had already been successful on other occasions. However, the outcome of this confrontation would be different. Even surrounded, NTWADUMELA reacted with extreme violence. His experience in previous fights made him a dangerous opponent, and his physical strength surpassed that of any individual hyena. He attacked quickly, taking down several hyenas before the group could coordinate an effective attack. The fight turned into a chaotic scene, where each side tried to impose its superiority. The hyenas used their agility to bite and retreat, while the lion tried to reach his targets with his paws and jaws. The arrival of NTWADUMELA's brother changed the course of the battle. With their numerical disadvantage reduced, the two lions began to systematically eliminate their opponents. The dominant female hyena, who had organized the attack, realized that the strategy was not working. However, retreating at that moment meant accepting a definitive defeat. In a last-ditch effort, she led a direct attack against NTWADUMELA, trying to force him to the ground and expose him to the rest of the group. The confrontation between NTWADUMELA and the hyena leader was decisive. With a precise blow, he managed to immobilize her and then eliminate her. The death of the dominant female destabilized the clan, which lost coordination and began to retreat. Without clear leadership, the remaining hyenas fled, ending the battle. The Savut region once again witnessed the strength of NTWADUMELA, who consolidated himself as the dominant predator of that territory. The consequences of this battle were significant. With the hyena clan weakened, the competition for food temporarily decreased. The lion pride could feed with less interference, ensuring greater safety for the cubs and females. However, the savanna is a dynamic environment where the balance of power is always shifting. Despite the victory, NTWADUMELA's position continued to be challenged by outside factors. The longevity of a dominant lion depends not only on its strength but also on its ability to adapt to changes in the environment. As the years passed, new challenges would arise and NTWADUMELA's fate would begin to change. His journey was heading into a new phase where the threat would not only come from other animals, but also from the passage of time and the presence of humans. As the years went by, NTWADUMELA began to face the natural challenges of aging. The life of a dominant lion is marked by constant disputes, and as he got older, his strength and stamina began to decline. In a highly competitive environment like the Savut savanna, this meant that his leadership position was increasingly threatened. Younger males, attracted by the opportunity to take control of the territory, began to test his authority, watching for signs of weakness. The social structure of lions favors the strongest, and NTWADUMELA's loss of strength became evident to his own pride. When a leader can no longer guarantee protection and access to prey, the coalition that once supported him can turn against him. Eventually, he was expelled by the members of his own pride, a common fate for older male lions. Without the protection of a coalition, he found himself alone, facing an environment where his presence no longer commanded the same respect. Without a fixed territory, NTWADUMELA began to wander through areas where he once ruled. He needed to avoid encounters with groups of younger lions and also with hyenas, who now saw him as a reduced threat. The scarcity of food and the difficulty of hunting alone made his survival even more challenging. Many lions in this stage of life end up succumbing to hunger or injuries from previous confrontations. It was during this period of fragility that NTWADUMELA met his final fate. In 1992, he was killed by hunters, ending a journey that had shaped the balance of power in the Savut savanna. This event coincided with the release of a documentary that portrayed his story, immortalizing his impact on the local ecosystem. His legacy remained as an example of what it means to be a dominant predator and the challenges that come with that position. The death of a lion like NTWADUMELA not only marks the end of an individual, but also alters the dynamics of the environment. The absence of his presence opened up space for the reorganization of the hierarchy between lions and hyenas, allowing new groups to compete for control of the region. Nature operates in cycles, and the fall of one leader means the rise of another. This process ensures the continuity of wildlife, but also highlights the fragility of individuals within it. NTWADUMELA's story illustrates the complexity of interactions between species and the constant struggle for survival. Although his strength was his greatest advantage, in the end, it wasn't enough to protect him from the threats of the environment itself and human intervention. His name was recorded as one of the most impressive lions of his time, but the savanna continued on its course, indifferent to the fate of any individual. NTWADUMELA's story shows how nature is a field of constant struggle, where strength and strategy define the fate of each animal. But what if the rivalry between lions and hyenas still holds secrets that few know? Do you think hyenas are really just opportunists, or can they pose a real threat to even the most feared predators? Comment your opinion below. And if you like exploring fascinating wildlife stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any content about the planet's greatest predators and nature's impressive battles.